Hey everybody, if you are watching this right now, you are in for a real treat. I'll tell you, after almost 4 years of doing real estate, if I did have secrets, this show is going to cover those. Mr. Eddie Speed is on with us today.
Boom. Here we go.
Hey guys,
Slow to
Hey.
click.
We appreciate you taking time out of your amazingly busy day to hang out with us, man, and share. I call it the land investing gospel. I don't know what you call it, but this should be a really good one, man.
yeah. No, it's
So-
we've entered a very interesting time in the market, right? And if they say that the most important rule in anything in real estate is timing. So what you do at certain times has a gigantic to do with your success.
Amen. Amen to that.
100% for sure. So I'm not even going to cover. We're going to do like this. This man has done like 50,000 transactions in real estate. Like it doesn't even make sense that it makes sense. So we're going to jump straight into it. So with the market the way it's going, why is creative finance the go-to strategy in this coming market?
Well, conventional lending and conventional real estate are twin sisters, right? In other words, when you have traditional real estate and they're getting a traditional mortgage, there's not a lot of room for inefficiency, or there's not a lot of room for, something else to be needed for the formula. Go look at real estate over the last couple of years, and you had this on fire market, right? FOMO, fear of missing out, right? And the truth be told, the number one variable that drove all this was that you had giveaway interest.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have giveaway interest, people can go overpay because it really doesn't cost them that much over time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Average interest rate on a residential mortgage for the past 50 years is 7.7%.
Really?
Yeah. So understand, I started in this business in 1980, when the famous thing was interest rates reached 20%. Now, they weren't 20% for a year and a half, but they reached 20%, and the average rate was probably 16% interest or something like that. And so what happened in that era was that conventional lending wasn't a thing. You couldn't make a payment work. So real estate ground to a halt. So how could somebody sell their property? Because you can't ever just cut the market off.
No.
And so what they did was, more than they had ever done in modern times, they used seller financing. And the seller could carry an interest rate at lower than the market rate. Seller financing filled a void that conventional lending couldn't. There's two voids generally in conventional lending. There's credit, and there's availability of credit, and there's cost of credit. Two variables, right? So in that market, it was cost of credit. And when the virus happened, for conventional lending, the availability of credit was cut down about a third, which is continuing to get worse, right? Meaning that about 40% of the people today can't get a mortgage that could qualify for a mortgage before the virus started. And that has nothing to do with the cost of credit. That's just the availability of credit. That's the underwriting standards.
You mean availability of credit, like the lenders are tightening up their money? They're less likely to let the money go?
Absolutely. And the Mortgage Bankers Association has an index called the Mortgage Credit Availability Index.
Wow.
Okay. And before the virus, it was at 185. Yesterday, Housing Wire sent out a message and said it's the lowest, the index is the lowest it's been in 9 years. It's at 105. So when you hear a story from a realtor or from a home builder or from a real estate investor who was selling a property, they say, yeah, my guy got to the closing and the loan, the deal fell apart because of financing.
I've been hearing a lot of that.
It's the new word, right? Well, it falls apart for two reasons. The mortgage industry is in terrific turmoil. Like the ugly stories have not really even come out yet. Behind the scenes, it is not good. And what happens when you have a double in interest rate? What happens to the affordability of the payment? So you're saying, Eddie, why does every real estate investor right now scream, no matter what asset class they're in, doesn't matter if they're dealing in houses, land, storage, like what asset class has not been affected by rates?
All
of them. And so the deal is this is the opportunity with information or clarity of what you do. This is the opportunity land. You think I'm sleeping good at night or bad at night? This is my briar patch, man. Huh? And when you said I've done 50,000 deals, let me make sure you understand something. I've set my mark in this industry by showing real estate investors how to utilize creative financing, and then they ended up selling me deals. So I started out with education. I started out with teaching them how to do it correctly. So that they've created paper. In this case, if you're buying from someone and they're creating paper, I guarantee you're going to have an opportunity to buy their note at a discount.
Yep.
You might want to come see me.
Ooh, wow.
So understand, when I started all these things, the reason 50,000 notes is a crazy number, right? But listen, I developed a note system for home investors. I developed the note system for a lot of real estate investors who carried seller financing over and over and over and over, and then they would sell their loans to me. So when you say I did 50,000 notes, it's the truth. But the deal is I had a system to create notes so people could follow that track. And that's when they ended up doing business with me. So now all of a sudden we're in an era where I know what the problem every real estate investor has. High interest rates have changed how they exit their deal. Right?
Yeah.
And so they need to change how they acquire the property so they can change how they dispose the property. Does that make sense?
Can you give us an example of that?
Okay. Here's a perfect example. If you're going to go buy a property and you're going to be paying 8% interest, you're going to use it as a rental, or you're going to buy dirt, or whatever it is, right? If I could change your effective interest rate to 2%, then you could offer a wrap note and resell it, and you could make a lot of money off financing because you have a different strategy than everybody else paying cash. Does that make sense?
Yep.
That's how people thrive in these kind of markets. And the truth of the matter is, most people aren't going to do it, right? Most of the people that are in the market are going to put their head in the sand like an ostrich, and they're not going to do anything about it. And every real estate mastermind I go to, that the predictions are pretty clear by February of next year, half the people will be gone. I don't think that's funny. I'm not making light of that. I'm just saying that
adapt to overcome.
This is what being an entrepreneur is.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to be ready to pivot. So that's why I'm so interested in this conversation right here. I keep hearing you're probably like maybe the third or fourth person that said that, like, you got to like start thinking about creative offers. That's going to be the way of the future now, to pivot into this new storm that we're headed into. So can you tell us a little bit about how you set up your offers, or what you present to a seller when you're talking to them, both somebody that's maybe they're fairly priced, maybe they're not under market. I heard you talking to RE Tipster, and you said you can almost pretty much just make a full price offer. So you're not having to make these low wholesale offers. You can negotiate some stuff on paper to make the terms a little bit more attractive to the seller.
Let me give you a number.
Okay.
Write this down. Y'all got a pencil? Everybody, the audience, write this down. Payment is $1,000 a month. Term is 30 years. That payment and that term are on 2 loans. One loan is $166,800, and one loan is $360,000. 2 loans, both identical payments, both identical terms. 166,800 is on a 6% note, and 360,000 is on a 0% note. Does price matter?
No, because you're negotiating 0% interest.
Yeah. So now what we're doing, and I'm going to tell you a little secret. And I want your audience to really, really get this. This is a little deep. Okay. It's the most important thing I'm going to say to you all day, other than how to get some more information. People go to a car dealership and they have access to so much information today. They pretty much know what the car dealership has in the car. There's so many websites, there's so many hacks, there's so many ways to do it that you can figure out how much the car dealership is making, and you can beat the guy down on price. People go in the finance department and they have no idea how they make money. And that's why every big car dealership in America, the most profitable entity in that car dealership is not the sales department. It's the finance department. And so understand that this market turning is turned into an opportunity, because when you learn how to make a creative offer, you can erase price, and that throws everybody else off. And I will tell you this. Nothing's 100%. Nothing that anybody can ever say in life, it's never true 100%. Well, I wouldn't say that, but most things in life are never 100%. But I'm going to tell you that there is a good percentage of people that sell property that if you give them the price they want, they will give the farm away and how they give it to you. And I'm pretty good at that. I've done it more than anybody in the country. I've done it longer. I've done more transactions. I'm not some guru that started doing this in the last month or two or year or two. You know, when they were in junior high school, I was teaching home investors how to do this. You got it? I've been doing it a while. And so sometimes gray hair matters. You know, I know like young people think, old people, they're this or that. You know, why are most presidents old guys? Right? They've got a lifetime of learning. Now, some people don't have 40 years experience. They just have 1 year's worth of experience 40 times.
Boom.
Some people have 40 years experience, right? So the point is, I know because I've done so many of these transactions, my mind in this area is very trained, right? I'm dumb about most things in life. Don't get me saying that I think I'm smart. I am very seasoned, and on this subject, my mind is a little bit like a Rubik's Cube. So I can adjust this or adjust term or adjust payment and do whatever, and I can do all that kind of stuff. The problem is you can't carry Eddie around in your pocket, right? So what I had to do was take, after structuring thousands of deals, me and my team had to break it down into structures that are most likely accepted and show you how to structure that when I've already baked in all the good stuff. Instead of you're having to know all this stuff. And eventually, guys, I could go take you for a long enough period of time, and I can there's nothing I know you can't learn. But if I could just give you a lot of experience, some real time tested stuff, and then I start showing you how to interview a customer and get the customer into a pattern. We call it decision tree path, right? You're taking a customer down a path to determine if that deal is a candidate, right? And so there's an interview process. They don't know where you're going. right? You're asking them questions about their property and they're answering questions. And then what you're doing is saying, oh, Cole, well, they're a candidate to carry a second lien. They're a candidate to carry a larger second lien. They're a candidate to carry financing on all of the deal. And another thing that people always believe is seller financing always has to be a first mortgage and they always have to own it free and clear. That's a myth, right? If you do creative financing correctly, you'll do a second more often than you do a first. So you may have to bring other financing to the deal, right? But the point is why you do it is because you're essentially borrowing money at way below the market. And that gives you an inordinate advantage.
Can you give us an example of that? Because it kind of went over my head. So you said if somebody has the property is not free and clear, you're going to take a second position as the buyer, and then and you're going to keep the original financing in place.
Well, you might keep the original financing in place, or you might go find new money
to clear out both of them. Both
and so then here's an example. Let's just say you have $100,000 piece of property, just a nice round number, $100,000. Everybody else is kind of stuck at $85,000 or $88,000. That's all they'll pay.
Trying to lowball you.
Your guy says, no, I won't sell it to you unless I can get 100. But he has a big mortgage that has to be paid off, or he's got some big immediate cash need. In other words, he can't finance a whole $100,000. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're like, I can get you money today to solve whatever problem it is, and I can get you a price. But in order to do that, you're going to have to carry a second mortgage for $20,000.
Mm-hmm.
Would you consider that?
Yes.
Okay. You know how I'm going to pay you back?
Yeah.
I'm going to pay you back in 15 years. I'm paying you more than anybody else. I'm trying to make the deal work for both sides. But in order for me to do that, because I'm having to pay a lot more interest at the bank than I used to yesterday, then you're going to have to work with me. The banks have caused your property to go down in value. I didn't cause it. But guess what? You think all them furniture companies that carry financing, you think they're losing money?
No.
No, they're not.
You're not losing money either.
Man, that's super strong. That is super strong.
Yeah. So I want to hit on something as well that you kind of brushed over, but I'm gonna dig in on this one. But what's the advantage of buying creatively when you're planning to sell it again?
Okay, so you know that deal that you structured?
Yeah.
You're gonna close this at a title company, right?
Yeah.
And you're gonna have you're gonna have your lawyer draw these documents. You don't go get the seller to have his lawyer draw the documents. You want your lawyer to draw the documents because you want them drawn to your advantage. Now you're not going to cheat somebody. You're going to pay them back, but there's just all kind of little clauses and things you can put in legal documents that are not standard at the bank or a mortgage company that are way to your advantage if you owe the money. So you're going to bake into that deal what I call a permanent subordination clause. It's going to say it's a second mortgage, and it's going to say it's a second mortgage against any mortgage that somebody else goes and gets on it. So now you're giving the guy a deal. You're going to flip it, right? You're giving him a deal that a certain percentage of the cost of property is just free money almost. So if you're going to flip it, then you're in great shape. Now, I can tell you from experience that I don't like owner financing junk property. Period. I'm out. I got too much experience. I don't give a crap what they say on the internet. I know how to pay. I bought 2,000 portfolios of land notes. I've looked at 6,000. Right? experience. So I don't like buying property where I think somebody's going to pay me back unless it's desirable property, house, land, apartments, whatever. I'm not a slum note guy of any asset class. I can just tell you it won't pay.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's people that disagree with me, but they don't have 50,000 in front of their name. Right? I've seen so much of this. I've drawn very distinct patterns. Good notes are on good properties. Right? So if you want to flip a deal, you can flip it with financing in place. That is not a problem. That is a great advantage to the buyer, and they will pay you more money because you gave them free financing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But what it also allows you to do is to go buy a better grade of property where the seller may carry a first mortgage, and then you get to do a wrap note. So you get to go enter a better asset class. And that's the loans that will pay you perfectly for decades. And now all of a sudden you built your own bank. And that's wealth. There's nothing wrong with flipping. It's just a job. And it's okay. I flip some deals. It doesn't fit our criteria. And I know you guys flip. I mean, I got it. But the truth of the matter is, if you can think in terms of buying on terms and selling on terms and building a portfolio of your own bank, of your own notes, you wake up in 5 years and where are you? You know, there's an old saying, and I think it's true. If you'll do what most people won't do for 5 years, you can do what you want for the rest of your life. And so, you know, we've made certain things sound really sexy. And flipping is obviously, overall, flipping all kinds of real estate is really sexy.
Mm-hmm.
It's not wealth. So you can flip some deals and keep doing it. I'm not telling you not to flip some deals, but I'm saying to you, what deal would you love to do that financing got in your way of doing it?
I got a couple of them on my radar right now.
Yeah. And the other thing is if you can figure out how to use the secret bank.
Who is the secret bank? Because you're alluding to it.
I thought you'd never ask.
I'm like, who or what is the secret bank?
Last year, the secret bank did $27.5 billion in business, almost $28 billion in business.
I'm going to guess.
They had most all of the transactions were not underwritten. There was no qualifications. There wasn't any. It wasn't like there was some. You know, there wasn't a big loan committee. They loaned money at below market rates. Y'all hadn't heard about this bank?
I'm guessing it's the sellers.
It's the Bank of Seller Financing.
Seller financing. Wow. How many billions last year?
About 28 billion, 27 and change.
Oh my goodness.
So you see, somebody is utilizing this. About 90,000 transactions. So that's what I teach people how to do, is go find the secret bank.
It's so it seems like secretive, like, oh, the secret bank, but it's individual sellers. So and this is, I know you know this one, but how much property is owned free and clear in the United States?
About a third.
A third, so 30%.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, if depending on what asset class you're chasing, you know, like landlord properties, if you're buying houses, landlords, small-time landlords have an inordinate amount of free and clear houses, about half the houses they own. Land, people that inherited land have, a lot of free and clear property, right? So
Yeah.
there's certain types of property where you just know this will work better because the odds are they don't have any debt against it.
It's so powerful because I didn't realize it was that big of a number. 27 billion. That's a huge number, and absorbing and finding that market share and possibly contacting those people it's interesting. It's crazy.
Well, and once again, it's so I've coached a lot of people to do this, and here's what I learned, right? For this process to work, it's got to be a simple process for you to follow. So what I did was I basically went backwards and looked at, we blueprinted out the process, and we blueprinted out the structures and how you do them. And from there, it becomes a lot easier because it's not so out there, right? It becomes pretty easy to go follow a template. Like like with a second lien, like I described, you can about figure that I'm going to write a gigantic deferral before you owe them any money. They're just financing a little piece of the deal, so you're not going to start paying them immediately. And so there's three paths: small second, larger second, seller carries all the financing. And once you can categorize the customer as to which program they're eligible for, then I can show you, things of go structure it this way, go do this, go do that. So that's what I do in training is I show people the templates so they don't have to go think of everything because it's not fair. I mean, this is what I've done for a long time, and I've structured so many deals. I now know what the odds are. Let me get you on a hack. I'll tell you a hack. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most people that are buying on terms and trying to buy with an extreme advantage because they're getting the seller to carry financing at below market rates, most people think the only way to do it is 0% interest. Statistically, less than 20% of the people will carry financing at 0% for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So getting drunk on carrying it at 0% interest that's not the magic, because they're losing all these deals that they don't even know about. But let me tell you what sellers will do over and over and over. Consistently, they will let you structure the financing where it looks like they're earning more interest than they're actually earning.
Can you give us an example of that?
That's a step rate.
Mm-hmm.
So you start out with $100,000 and you're paying 1.5% interest. And after 5 years, it goes to 2.5%. And after another 5 years, it goes to 4%. And after another 5 years, it goes to 5%. But here's the math. The effective interest rate on that structure is very, very low. It's in the low 2%, because you're paying all of the high interest on the backside of the loan when you've paid off most of the principal. But see, they don't know that.
They're not a bank.
Well, let me ask you a question. Average guy walking down the street wants to negotiate interest. I just pull out my financial calculator. I was looking to see if I could put my hand on it. I just pull out my financial calculator and say, no, you figure it. You calculate it. Exactly. They can't do it. And when you then make it an adjustable rate, you just eliminated 99% of the people that can do it. I'll bet you, Daniel, you can't do it. And you're a dang sharp guy with a financial calculator sitting on your desk. But if I told you to give me the true effective rate on the way I structured it, you'd be like, oh, crap. How do I do that? Because the bigger payment and the bigger interest starts way down the road 10 years from now. But what I've learned is this. Interest rates are country club bragging rights. They want to call their sister and say, we seller financed it and we're getting 5% interest.
Country club bragging rights.
And so, listen, how do you figure anything out in life? You're either taught it or you just done it so much you finally figured out the pattern to it. I've done it so much, I've figured out the pattern. I would rather just teach you. In other words, if I can give you the experiment and give you the results that we figured out, that's way more efficient than you're going and trying it.
Yeah, 100%.
And I've learned that there's just certain things that sellers will do. I describe it like, y'all know any junior high school teachers?
No.
I'm still friends with one of my
cousin, some friend, somebody's a junior high school teacher, right?
Yeah.
So take a school teacher that teaches 7th grade English. Okay. There's two very distinct differences. That school teacher, that adult, does not think like a 7th grader. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But that teacher has to know how a 7th grader thinks.
Mm-hmm.
I know how somebody seller financing thinks. And I've reduced it to a process, a system that I can help people do. It's not, in other words, it's just thought patterns that they're most likely to do this. If you structure it this way, they most likely will do this. In other words, and there's enough patterns to it that all of a sudden I've cracked the code on that pattern. I describe it like, you remember the show Candid Camera?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they know little kids are going to stick their hand in the cookie jar and open their hand to get the cookie, and then they're not going to be able to pull their hand out, right? They know that. But that little kid doesn't know that, do they?
Mm-mm.
So they put the hidden camera over and over and over, and the kid sticks his hand in the cookie jar, and then he can't get it out. Ha, 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 ha. Somebody just figured out a human pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I figured out some human patterns about people willing to carry owner financing.
Can we do a demonstration, just like because here's what we get all the time is no, I just want my cash. I just want cash. You know, where do you go with somebody like that? Like, if you, you can show them on paper, you can make more money.
Let me say this.
Okay.
This system works when you ask the right interview questions.
Mm-hmm.
This system works when you can overcome their objections. This system works when you can then structure a deal, Eddie structure, in a way that works. Mm-hmm. So when somebody says, I just want my cash, of course they do. Duh. Mm-hmm. But the answer is if what is more important to you, getting the most amount of money for your property, or taking a little less price for your property, maybe sometimes a lot less price, and getting it all in cash. I can give you what you want, which is price, but you're going to have to give me something of what I need to make it work. You see, now you're positioning it.
Yeah, that was amazing. What you just did right there was already like a great opener. That was amazing.
So people tell me this all the time. Like, sellers won't take my price. You can imagine, Anthony, what I'm saying to myself is, you're not asking it the right way.
Yeah, because just the way you just structured that was perfect. Like, what's more important to you, taking a low cash offer or getting the most amount of money for your property? So you just kind of like segued into that is like, okay, well, I'm going to show you how to get the most amount of money.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's perfect right there.
I mean, and the more you go and the more kind of positioning you understand, the thing that I love about teaching is I like to teach from a perspective of most people that do what I do are kind of math nerds, right? And they're good at whiteboarding a deal. There's people that may be I don't know anybody that's structured near as many deals as I have. I mean, like when you've done thousands, and I mean mega thousands, it's just a short list of people in the world that could say that legitimately. So but I know there's other people that also are good at structuring deals, and I appreciate their skill. I structure a deal with a mental thought of whether the seller is willing to take the deal I'm structuring. I always start out with, would they do this? Now, I have an advantage because I know how somebody that seller finances thinks, right? And so when I'm giving you a structure, I've already played all that out in my mind. I know that a seller 82% of the time will do it with that step rate interest the way I described. You don't know that. What you've seen is some guru on TikTok or internet or whatever, and they say they always buy them at 0% interest. Well, they may, but they're leaving a lot of money on the table. I can tell you that, because there are a lot of deals that won't close. And I would rather have a 20-year note than somebody willing to carry me 0% with a 5-year balloon. I would far rather have a 20-year note. And so you may feel like, well, Eddie, you're giving up interest you don't have to pay. And the answer is no, I may not be. And so it's okay to take a swing at 0%, but just expect no more than you're going to expect yes. The other thing I've learned is this: sellers start out, when you start out in terms, Anthony, it's a little along the lines of what you said. Sellers always start out with high expectations. What you have to do is interview them to find out which of the expectations is truly a sword they're going to fall on versus just them not really knowing what they're negotiating for and just sort of air fighting. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned that these interview processes we've developed lead people to the right question. That's the sword they really are going to fall on. So it's just it's a pattern. It's a process that people follow that leads them to better success than this. Let me ask you an example, Anthony. Take 2 salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
Give them 1,000 deals each to go work on. The salesman that has a psychological sales process will crush a salesman that just gets in there and starts to shuck and jive and try to talk about the property.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Oh yeah.
Why?
I mean, if you can systematize it, you can like walk the sellers down in their mind. Like you can go down these mental hallways.
That's it.
Yeah.
You have to make them face what they have to face.
Mm-hmm.
So I start out with completely understanding that. If somebody brings me a terms deal and they haven't taken the customer down, as you refer to that psychological hallway, and that all they've done is gotten on there and found out about the land and this and that, and so they haven't prepared the customer, I'm not a magician.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can't help them with a terms offer that's highly effective because they haven't prepared the customer in the right way. But I guarantee you that people that are just making cash offers, and particularly on the asset class, people making cash offers on land, they're buying on ridiculous terms, right? Ridiculous price, right?
Yeah.
I like dealing in a little better grade of land, right?
Like
I don't like dealing in real cheapo land. But if you can flip it, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but I deal in land that's a lot of money, but I get the seller to carry terms.
You like what, like development land versus like farm and ranch? Or are you talking like cheap land? Like
I like farming. I like farm and ranch deals. I like breaking up land tracts.
Okay.
I'm not really a developer. I call myself a land aggregator. But sometimes I may buy a single tract, or sometimes I may go buy a single tract that I sell as a single tract. Or sometimes I may go buy a piece of property and I can break it into 3, or I can break it into 8, or I can break it into whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I love that business because the sellers are so prone to carry terms. Now, I know what a lot of guys say about the land business. Oh no, oh no, Eddie, they won't carry terms. We offer terms to them all the time. They'll never take terms. I'm like, well, how do you ask them?
Very nice, man. Do you focus on land primarily, or what asset class?
I have a partner, and I've been in the land business for 30 years.
Okay, yeah, that's our game. That's all we do is land. That's all we think about. That's all we talk about, and that's kind of our primary.
Oh
game.
yeah, I mean, I've done land from Eagle Pass to, Kansas City.
Wow.
And I like the land business. I've been around it for a very long time. I got into it because land guys would end up owner financing property, and I was a note buyer, right? So they'd show up at my door and they'd try to sell me notes. And then I figured out they weren't terribly good at financial modeling. They weren't good at structuring deals with terms. So I'd end up partnering with them, and they were the only boots on the ground land guys, and I was more of helping them with that side of the business. And one thing's just kind of led to another. And so, yeah, I mean, I've been around the land space a long time. And I bought a lot of land notes. I've seen literally thousands and thousands of portfolios on land. And so I kind of figured out over the years, it'd be portfolios where people have owner financed the land, they're carrying paper. Mm-hmm. And so then I've sort of patterned it to land notes that were really, really good and land notes that were really, really substandard. And so that I work backwards in thinking, well, if a deal is a seller finance candidate for me to carry and sell it on a seller financing, the land has to be a certain quality grade. Like, let me give you an example. I operate we buy land in northwest of Dallas-Fort Worth and a county up there. And a little town's called Nocona. Okay.
I have something northwest Fort Worth. Let me look up Nocona real quick while you're talking.
Yeah. And so there's a subdivision. They sold several thousand lots in this subdivision, and they sold third-acre lots. Okay. Now this just looks like a pasture, right? It's an old subdivision. People live there for years. They inherited it. Mom and daddy died. They've been paying the taxes on it for 20 years. They haven't done anything with it. And they call us and want to sell this land. Okay. And they're third-acre lots. Call the county, and to put a water well in and a septic system, it takes 2 acres.
Dang.
So guess what? That's a worthless piece of land. In my humble opinion, that's a worthless piece of land. So I don't like that kind of deal. Like, what are you going to do with it? Eat the grass on it? I mean, it's just like, it's nothing to do with it. So I like a deal. So I want to go sell a piece of land to somebody that I want that land, in my mind, if they're going to be paying me back over time, I want that land to be sacred to them. So, and there are so many opportunities in that regard. And to be honest with you, the land business, kind of like the house buying business, there's not a whole bunch of people walking around that are really, really highly skilled at creative offers, how to go buy on terms, right? So people would find themselves just like, hey, I can make an offer that they don't hear this from their competition. Let me give you an example. Go find me a $300,000 piece of land. Somebody inherited it from mom and dad, and they've had it for 20 years. And they thought they were going to go back and ride around and stay there and do a weekend, and they never did it, right? Typical piece of dirt deal you see, right?
Yep.
What if I could show them how to sell that property and maybe never have to pay tax on the capital gains?
Dang.
So let's say they inherited it 25 years ago. They got basically no basis in it. I mean, they might have something, but they got $20,000 basis, and they sell it for $300,000.
Yeah.
280, right? If you seller finance it, you get to pay capital gains the year you collect the money, not the year you sell it. You get to, instead of standing it up and it's all paid at the end, you get to lay it down and pay it over time. Now, let me tell you a little trick. That's called installment sales. It's been in the tax code for decades, right? Every accountant, if you ask them about it, they, oh yeah, that's installment sales. Yeah, you can do that. Here's what most people don't know. If you lay down and you only collect just a low amount of capital gains in any one year, and you don't hit that $40,400 that it takes to get to a number that capital gains is taxed. See, the first $40,000 is tax-free capital gains every year. So if you kept yourself below that every year as a single filer on your tax return, you would never be forced to pay capital gains because you never hit the threshold that it gets taxed. Bada bing, bada boom.
Mm.
Wow. That's a freaking game changer right there.
That's a hack.
Wow, dude. Okay. Can we go over the installment sale a little bit? Because I've heard like in Texas, they said you can't do contract for deed. So the gentleman's he wants $1 million. He can't take it cash because then he's going to lose like 21% capital, long-term capital gains or something like that.
You would never buy a property on a land contract.
Okay. How do you buy it to where he gets the tax benefits and then you might also get
He seller finances it to you.
And so as long as he doesn't go above that threshold, he's good.
Yeah.
But if he does go above it,
it's literally, you can just take you a piece of paper and map it out. Take $1 million in gain and lay it down sideways and take it out over 20 years and figure out how much every year that you can pay him to keep him below the amount that, see, the first so much money in capital gains each year isn't taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And if you never get to that amount, that's a free year of no tax, and the next year, and the next year, and the next year. So let me just generally tell you this about land contracts, okay? First of all, I bought well over 20,000 land contracts. So I happen to actually know how they work. I'm not an attorney, but I know a lot more about them than most attorneys. I foreclosed on them. I modified them. Believe me, I bought them in 30, 40 states.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are saying do a land contract because they're quoting to you an advantage that used to be true 15 or 20 years ago. Because 15 or 20 years ago, if the people didn't pay, you could treat them like a tenant and just do an eviction, called a termination of contract.
Mm-hmm.
Most every state's law have changed, and that's not true anymore. So when all these gurus are teaching land contracts, they don't know what the heck they're talking about. It's no unique advantage. It was 20 years ago, but the states have changed the laws. And you can't just, people have what's called an equitable interest in the property. A court of equity, they call it. Mm-hmm. And so then you have to say, well, I can't just evict you. I got to go through a foreclosure process. So people think there's not foreclosure on land contracts, just don't know what they're talking about. Believe me, if I could have bought all the deals I bought and not had to take them to foreclosure, you think I would have done it? Of course I would have. I would have saved the money and time, but I had to follow the law. So there's most things about land contracts are a myth, right? Mm-hmm. I got no problem with a guy selling me a piece of property and deeding the property to me, and I'm going to give him a mortgage against the property. I'm going to own the property in my name, and he's going to be the bank. And is there a terrific tax consequence if I know how to show him how it works? Now, you got to do a disclaimer. You're not a CPA. You're not like all that stuff. You got to do a disclaimer. But let me just tell you something. That is a crazy closing he's never been pitched on before. And by the way, Anthony, look what I did. I showed you how to deal in a different asset class.
Mm-hmm.
Better property.
Yes, and you mentioned that in the beginning. Yeah, you can go after nicer stuff, better stuff that you actually want to keep or hang on to if it was your property. And I love the way you phrase that. This land has to be sacred to them. Like you're not buying it like as a hobby or a play toy. Like this land better be your sacred ground, your holy ground.
Well, listen, if you want to get paid, you can't sell somebody something. They're going to wake up one day and find out they're dissatisfied.
Mm-hmm.
Or find out they don't like it. So you got to sell them something that they want. And I just and like I said, I'm involved in deals that are literally on the border in Eagle Pass. I've done stuff all over South Texas. Been deeply involved with guys that did a lot of seller financing, lots of seller financing. I have a client in the Valley that's done 36,000 seller finance notes. Right? Believe me. I know the pattern of this property and how people will pay. So when people have done a dozen deals, let's just say they haven't done a big enough sampling yet to really know statistically how it works. And I want to say that I can show most people how to deal in a better grade of property by using creative financing, like we just discussed. Mm-hmm. So I love land. You'll have people on the podcast that want to do other kinds of property, and I help people with all kind of asset class. I don't care if you're dealing in dirt or houses or multifamily or storage facilities. The credit problem today, the interest rate problem today is not on one kind of property. It's universal.
Yeah.
What I hope after this conversation is people see it more of an advantage than a disadvantage.
Yeah. 100%. There's, what was I going to ask? As far as financing goes, are you going through an RMLO, or if they put a large enough down payment, is that standard as if you're selling that seller finance property you have?
Well, generally speaking, in every state, they define property that you're the lender on as used for residential purposes. So that's another big myth. Some land gurus tell you that land is not subject to Dodd-Frank. That's a lie from the pits of hell.
Oh, shoot. I didn't know that.
It's not. It is. If they could potentially use it for residential purposes, it's subject to Dodd-Frank.
Even if there's no house on it, just because it's land that they could develop.
Residential purposes. You know, that guy I told you about sold 36,000 owner finance properties in the Valley? Mm-hmm. He has to use an RMLO because they're going to put a house on that lot. Mm-hmm. So, and by the way, you think he's hired a stream of lawyers that could figure out if there's any way he could have not had to fool with Dodd-Frank? You think he'd have figured it out?
Oh, yeah.
So when some guru tells you that you're not subject to Dodd-Frank, he's just making up stuff. Let's just be fair about it. I don't like that. I am an advocate for good business, and I'm an advocate for seller financing bringing a lot of joy to people's lives, right? But I just don't make stuff up that's not a truth. And I've seen land gurus. I know many people in your audience say, well, my guru said this. I don't know what to say. I mean, you're asking me to respond to something I think is kind of ridiculous because I think the guru is saying something ridiculous in it. And I think sometimes they know better. They just say it anyway. I have a high distaste for that. So let me just tell you something. It's no big deal, Anthony. You hire an RMLO and you seller finance it and you're good. And by the way, when you go through an RMLO and you really do have an underwriting box and you really do have an approval process, I can tell you from looking at paper since 1980, it'll pay better. So that extra trouble you went through will be good to you because the people will pay you. They're more qualified and they'll pay you more consistently. So It's good for you. Now, when does a piece of property hit the phase of being non-residential? Is that 20 acres? Is that 50 acres? And there is some point where there's a decision. If you're selling enough acreage, they're probably not going to use it. Or they may sign an affidavit and say, I'm not ever going to put a house on this. I mean, you don't make them lie. Don't teach them to lie and make them sign something that's not true. But I've sold a lot of tracts to people, and people say, well, we're not putting a house on it. This is just our weekend place. You know? Okay.
So let's say they don't qualify with the RMLO. Do you just not sell to them?
Why don't they qualify?
I don't know. What would it be like if it just, I don't know, maybe they're just debt to income ratios off or something.
Well, you don't have to qualify somebody to Fannie Mae standards.
Okay.
You just have to use good judgment.
Yeah, so you just look at it and you're basically the judge of it if you're going to give the loan or not. Do I trust this person to pay me back?
Yeah, and the other thing is if you hire an RMLO, understand that you need to establish what are acceptable guidelines for your lending. People say, well, I went through an RMLO and he underwrote them. He underwrote them to what? Right? The RMLO is just an underwriter. He's following an underwriting box. You should be able to establish what that is. So I help people figure out what that looks like, right? In other words, see, my goal, Anthony, is I want you to be able to create good paper that'll pay you years in the future. We've knocked down 2 big walls today. How do you go find better property? Creative terms.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go create wrap notes that will be good to you forever? Dealing in better properties and dealing with an underwriting process where people are actually vetted. Like, can you imagine renting a house and not vetting the tenant? What would happen?
Disaster.
Okay, well then, if you sell a piece of house, sell a piece of dirt to somebody, and you don't vet the buyer, what do you figure is going to happen?
So, yeah, something's not going to happen, right?
There's millions of landlords that'll tell you that won't work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So understand it's the same thing, and so we're just establishing simple, common sense processes so that now all of a sudden you've really tightened up your business. That's what I like.
And that's amazing. So what can people do to work with you? Do you have is it a course, a training? Is it a kit they can buy? Is it like weekly mentorship?
Best way for them to start is to go through a master class with me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I've got it popped up there on the screen. I know you'll put it in the notes, right? Daniel, I know how you are. You do good. You're solid, right? You got this system figured out. So yeah, just noteschool.com/hi. This is a $100 class. And because of you guys, your squad are getting invited to it and you're paying it, essentially, right? I'm not charging you guys to come to it. So it's a couple of hours, and I just basically lay out what the system looks like. How does it work? Like you got to theoretically hear it today. Let me show it to you. Let me show you some examples. Let me show you how it works. And when you do that, then all of a sudden you're like, hey man, I can see this. This is like lining up. And then, you know, if they, at the end of the master class, if they learned all they need to learn, then go get them, Tiger. If they want to come to a little more extensive stuff with us, then they can come down the path with Note School. And we've got some very affordable training that's not expensive but it's valuable. And we just show them how to go do this.
Man, I'll tell you guys what, if you're watching this right now, for one, you are blessed. You are in the presence of greatness. And if you learn the things that Eddie's talking about, it will change your business and it will change your life and the life of if you are a teacher, your students, all the people around you, everybody you talk to from now on, this information will change your life. Yeah. So for what he's offering at that price point, apparently, Daniel, and we're working something out where we're going to cover it.
Well, I'm saying to you that I don't just go when you go to see other Note School marketing, those people are paying $97.
Yeah.
You guys have been kind enough to kind of introduce me to your inner circle and your group here. And as a result of that, then we're not charging it. So, yeah.
Holy smart. Yeah. If you guys don't take advantage of this, I mean, just the things that I've learned on this call right here alone, applying creative financing and notes and that kind of stuff to our business, I feel like I've probably learned more in the last like 60 days than I've learned in the last 4 years. So I for free, guys, I highly encourage you to jump on here and spend a little bit of time with Eddie. Yeah, because this guy is he's one of the greats, one of the legends. And if a lot of this stuff went over your head, hey, a couple of things went over my head, right? So please take a deeper dive, take a deeper look.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna slow it down. You know, we're gonna start out being very basic. This master class will show you the structure that we've developed so that you can feel confident. You can, at the end of the day, go make these simple offers of creative financing to the sellers, and you know how to. There's 3 things you got to do. You got to ask the right questions. You got to overcome objections. You got to make simple offers. And we're going to show you a very elaborate process to build it that we've now broken into just something simple. When we started out, it was all over the place, right? Thousands of deals and all this stuff. But we just broke it down and built lanes. And so a deal would fit right over here in this lane. That deal, like we now have made it to where somebody can just follow the path. And with that, a lot more people can utilize it. That's my heart. I want everybody in the country to be able to use it.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. I know there's people that know some of the stuff you know, and they're not openly willing to share it. So we really appreciate you coming on here and spending time with us. And it's very enlightening. I hope we could do some deals with you. So I think we might start sending some stuff your way. Yeah, this is amazing, man. Maybe we need to do part 2 of this and go a little bit deeper.
The master class will really help your audience a lot, honestly. And I'm going to say this to you guys. That's what you should do. Just go down the path of the master class.
Yeah.
What we've done is taken it and made it very simple. Like when people leave the master class, their level of clarity is like then becomes really high. Right. And we can teach very advanced stuff. Of course we can. But people just need some basic stuff to get started. And we just want to get them on I want people to leave there with actionable steps. And that's what the master class is designed for.
There you go.
That's it, guys. We're heading into a storm. There's no question. Whoever says that we're not is kidding. You better have the tools to be able to navigate the storm, or you might find yourself in a little bit of trouble. So get ahead of the curve. Join the master class. Check it out. I promise you the information is going to change your life.
Man, thanks for coming on. I really appreciate your time. I know it's just amazing. It's just amazing to have this conversation with you because, like, every time I love doing podcasting because you key on certain parts that you don't really know the answer to, and it's just it brings clarity over time. So if you didn't,
it's a good format for me because it lets people kind of get to know me, and I'm just a regular guy. I'm just a regular dude that's been doing something a long time and have built a little specialization out of it, but I love it, and I want all of your audience to have success with it.
Well, there you go. Well, we appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on. Check them out, The Note Authority on Instagram and noteschool.com/hive. Go check it out. We appreciate your time. You all have a great day. Thanks for coming on this episode. We'll see you next time.